flip open to 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel, if you are new here or haven't been here in the last, I think this is 3 weeks, so this is the fourth, I think, third, fourth, something like that, of our series on David. In the Bible, when it comes to it, if you take Jesus off the table as being your favorite Bible character, if you force me, I would probably say that David is my favorite Bible character. I like David because David was so in tune with the Lord. He was so acknowledging of the Lord. He kept the Lord ever before him, even in his weakness, even in his pain, even in his sin, even during the victories and the defeats. He is an example of what we should be. And I want us to learn about him. So what we're doing is we're going verse by verse through his life. We have covered his boyhood. We've covered his killing of Goliath. We've covered his anointing as king, even though right now in our story, he's not king yet. Saul is still king, but he is anointed as king. He knows it's coming. But one of the things I admire about him is even in waiting for what God has promised him, he handles it with such grace, okay? He handles it with such dignity. And we're gonna see that tonight. I think we're gonna cover some ground tonight. Where we left off last week in chapter 20, Saul has, remember early on in week 1, we covered Saul's rebellion against God. Saul rebelled against God, and God had given him the kingdom, and God said, you know what? I am going to take the kingdom away from you, because Saul not only rebelled, but continued to rebel, okay? He continued to dig his feet in and argue with God through the man of God, Samuel, and he did not completely obey what God wanted him to do. So God said, look, you may look the part, you may act the part, you may look like what everybody thinks a king should, but I don't give you my blessing anymore. I'm taking the kingdom from you. And then, of course, Samuel was instructed to go anoint David as the new king, who did not take effect immediately. God let Saul run his reign run its course, and you're gonna see that. And it has a tragic ending to it. But you see Saul in rejection of God. We've taken some takeaways. When God scolds you, when he chastens you as a parent, as a father, the best thing to do is not to fight him on it, not to scorn. The book of Proverbs calls that being a scorner. When God says, hey, straighten up, and you push away from him, you're being a scorner. It is the opposite of being prudent and wise. It is being a scorner, and it's the road that leads to being a fool, is what the book of Proverbs says. You can get bitter at God for getting upset with you when you're out of line as a child of his, or you can get better by receiving correction. Saul did not receive correction, thus the kingdom is destined to be taken away. Now, there's a lot of complications and there's a lot of soap opera elements to the story of David. We see that Saul, last week we talked about Saul offered David basically his daughter and to be his son-in-law if he could go kill a bunch of Philistines. And we saw that crazy story. And he went and he didn't kill 100 Philistines, he killed 200 of them. And he brought that very special gift back to Saul that we won't get back into, but read your Bible. It's very PG-13 a little bit on that stuff. But he marries Michael, his daughter becomes Saul's son-in-law. Saul continues more and more as he sees God's favor on David. He begins to hate him more and more and begins to try to kill him. And there's always Saul. Every time I picture Saul now, I see him with that spear. And pay attention tonight because you're going to see the spear again, okay? We're going to pick up in chapter number 21. David and Jonathan have made their covenant. Remember last week, Jonathan warned David, my dad is going to kill you. At first, he was like, I don't think my dad's really going to do that. But then he found out, you know what? Dad is bound and determined to kill you. So he warned David, and David ran for it. We pick up in chapter number 21. Then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest. Now notice to Ahimelech. And Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David and said unto him, why art thou alone and no man with thee? So David runs after being warned by Jonathan. Remember when he shot the arrows and he told him, sent the boy out and said, you know, if I holler at the boy and say the arrows are back this way, then it's okay to come back in. David's hiding out in the field. But if I tell the boy, go farther, that's the cue to you better run. Well, he had to run, so he runs by himself and he goes to Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech the priest knows the drama. He doesn't know the latest drama, but he knows, and so he's afraid because David has come alone to him. Verse number 2, and David said unto Ahimelech the priest, the king hath commanded me a business, and hath said unto me, let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee, and I have appointed my servants to such and such place. Now therefore, what is under thine hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in mine hand, or what there is present. Okay, so he shows up to Ahimelech the priest in the place called Nob, and it was a city of priests, Jewish priests. And he basically says, I'm on a secret errand from Saul, so that's why I'm here. That's why I'm alone, and I didn't have time to take any food. He said, what do you have here to eat? Okay. And the priest answered David and said, there is no common bread under mine hand, but there is hallowed bread, if the young men have kept themselves at least from women. And David answered the priest and said unto him, of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in a manner common, yea, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel. So basically, David needs provision. He needs food, so he goes in alone to talk to Ahimelech, leaves some of his guys that are with him out, but he's trying to get some food. Well, the only food there, okay, they're priests. So they have the showbread that they would put inside the tabernacle, and they would put it before the Lord. It was part of decor is the wrong way, the furniture, and they put out showbread before the Lord. He said, that's all we've got, and we've put the fresh out, the hot bread in there, and they changed that out, and we got this, okay? So the priest gave him, verse 6, hallowed bread. And you'll remember, I believe in the New Testament, Jesus references that, if I'm not mistaken. So the priest gave him hallowed bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before the Lord to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. Now watch this. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord. So in Nob, the city of the priests, there's a guy who works for Saul. He's one of Saul's servants, okay? And his name was Doeg. There's a good baby name, okay? An Edomite, the chiefest of the herdmen that belonged to Saul. Okay, so Doeg's here, and you're gonna see in a second, he sees David. And David said unto Ahimelech, and is there not here under thine hand spear or sword? For I have neither brought my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. So David says, look, I had to run, the king needed me urgently to go take care of this business. So here I am, and I need some food, yes, but is there a sword here? Is there a spear or anything like that? And the priest said, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom thou slewest in the valley of Elah, behold, it is here, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If thou wilt take it, take it, for there is no other save that here. And David said, there is none like that, give it me. So he is shown and given Goliath's sword, okay? Goliath's sword. Remember, there's a lot of, after David killed Goliath, Goliath's head ended up in Jerusalem. Jerusalem wasn't even an Israelite city yet, and it was planted there. He took the skull of Goliath and the head of Goliath to Jerusalem, but the sword ends up in a place called Nob, and then David ends up here, and he's weaponless, and so he asks for the sword, and says there's none like it, so he takes the sword. And David arose, verse 10, and fled that day for fear of Saul, and went to Achish, the king of Gath. Now watch this. So remember, you're gonna remember Doeg. So Doeg, just kind of setting the scene, was in Nob. David shows up. Remember, Saul is bound and determined to kill David. So David ran at the warning of Jonathan, goes to Nob. There's a guy there, Doeg. He's gonna come back on the scene in just a minute, who saw David there. And so David flees Nob, and he goes to the king of Gath, whose name is Achish, okay? And David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul, and went to Achish, the king of Gath. Now watch this. And the servants of Achish said unto him, is not this David, the king of the land? Did not they sing one to another of him in dances, saying, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands, 10,000s. And David laid up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So when David, he's running, he goes to Gath, which is a Philistine city, and he goes down there, and Achish is the king of Gath. And so everybody, there's a buzz that David has showed up there. And they're like, oh, this is David. Why is he running for his life? I thought this was big bad David who killed Goliath. And they wrote songs about him, said, you know, he's killed, Saul's killed thousands. David's killed tens of thousands. He's running. So David felt vulnerable in Gath. So when you feel vulnerable and you're in a city and you're scared and you're afraid that they're gonna kill you or something because you don't come across as big and as bad as the songs they sing about you, what do? What would you do? Run? Well, he comes up with a plan B. He doesn't run. You know what he does? He goes crazy. That's what he does. He acts like he's crazy. Read this, crazy, literally, okay? And he changed his behavior before them and feigned himself mad in their hands. So he fakes losing his mind, okay? And here's what he did, and scrabbled on the doors of the gate, okay? And let his spittle fall down upon his beard. So he starts like foaming at the mouth, just spitting everywhere, letting it run down his beard, and starts scratching on the walls and everything, and acts like he's crazy, okay? Then said Achish unto his servants, lo, you see the man is mad. Wherefore then have you brought him to me? Have I need of madmen that ye have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? Okay? So he doesn't get hurt. David acts like he's crazy. Then they don't want him there. And so he leaves Gath. So David this is very uncertain, okay? He has no provision. He goes to Nob. He gets food. He gets a sword. He goes to Gath. They're kind of skeptical of him. So he acts like he's crazy in order to get out of there. And then he leaves Gath. As we get to chapter 22, David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave Adullam. Now, if you'll notice this, a lot of the caves, you'll see David hiding in very cave-like areas. And we're going to talk about in just a moment a place called En-Gedi. En-Gedi. How many went to Israel with us? Anybody here that went to Israel? Bruce, anybody else? Okay, y'all remember En-Gedi? Okay, it's down south by the Dead Sea, over by the Jordan River, and it is a very barren area. And it was closed that day. I think that we didn't get to go to En-Gedi, the actual place, but you could see where it was. You could see the sign, and it's very rocky and just huge rocky mountains, and you know, there's caves and things like that. So he goes and down into that region. He goes to a place called Adullam. And if you'll notice when you read the Psalms, a lot of the times, prefacing the Psalm, it will tell you where David wrote it. Not always, but a lot of these Psalms were written during these days as he is hiding for his life. Now remember this, you gotta keep in mind, David is the anointed king, okay? So David knows that God's got his hand on him, but he also knows, and he has to wonder, like, what in the world's going on in my life? Okay, because here I am, I'm supposed to be king. I was a young man tending sheep, minding my own business, beating off bears and lions and keeping them off my sheep and killing them. And here, you know, now I'm running from the guy that I'm supposed to replace, and I've been nothing but loyal to him. So David goes to Adullam, and when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. So not only is David in jeopardy, who else is in jeopardy? His dad, Jesse, all of his brothers. He's got 7 other brothers, okay? He got a big family, okay? And his father's house hears of it, and they go down to him. And everyone that was in distress, now notice this, and everyone, so not only his family, and everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. So all of these people, his family joins him, okay, in this place called Adullam. And all of these people who are in debt, discontented, kind of on the outs from society, start making their way down to David, okay, in this very barren, rugged area of Israel, okay? And they gather there, and David becomes the captain, the Bible says, over about 400 men, okay? I can't help but think of like Robin Hood, okay? He's out in the wilderness and he's on the outs from King John or whatever his name was. And what happens? All these folks who are kind of the band of misfits start joining him, and he creates a little army there that he's got to take care of, and becomes the captain over them. So that's where David is. He's at Adullam, okay? And David went thence to Mizpah of Moab, okay? And he said unto the king of Moab, let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you till I know what God will do for me. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while that David was in the hold. So David arranged for his parents, his close family, to be kind of housed and protected by the king of Moab. And the prophet Gad said unto David, abide not in the hold. Depart and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed and came into the forest of Hareth. So the prophet, the man of God, tells him that you don't need to stay in the hold in Adullam. Go to Hareth and go into Judah, and he does. Now watch this. When Saul heard that David was discovered and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, guess what? Having his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. So if you want to know what Saul's been doing, he's been ruminating on David, and he's been sitting under a tree with all his lieutenants and his generals and his colonels sitting around him, and guess what he's got in his hand? That same spear. He likes that spear, right? Then Saul said unto his servants that stood about him, hear now, you Benjamites. Remember, Saul is from the tribe of Benjamin, so his closest guys are probably Benjamites. Will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? That all of you have conspired against me, and there's none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse? And there's none of you that is sorry for me, or showeth unto me that my son hath stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait as at this day? So he kind of calls out his guys. He's like, hey, is David going to make you rich? Is David going to give you lands? Is David going to give you houses? Is David going to give you fields? He said, has David promised you something? Because all of you bunch of scoundrels around here, not one of you told me that my son, Jonathan, is in the league and made a covenant with David. Not one of you came to me and told me that the son of Jesse is lying in wait at this day to kill me. See, Saul is the one chasing after David, but in Saul's mind, he bends the truth, twists the truth, and he sees himself as the victim, okay? He sees himself like, David's trying to take me. No, David's not trying to take you. God made it clear to you that the kingdom is not going to stay with you, okay? You know that the kingdom's going to go to David, and you're fighting it instead of welcoming him. You are getting bitter rather than getting better, okay? Jonathan, his son, saw it, okay, and made a big step and said, you know what? The kingdom belongs to my father now, and I would inherit it, but that's not God's plan. So guess what? I am okay, David, with you being king. Just take care of me and my family and watch over us. I want what God wants, okay? Saul was not able to do that. But watch this. Then answered Doeg the Edomite. Remember him? Doeg the Edomite, who was in Nob, the city of the priest, okay, and knew that David was there that day. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse come to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath, the Philistine. So Doeg pipes up to get on the good side of Saul when Saul is calling out. Remember, he was a servant of Saul. When Saul is calling out all of his servants for being disloyal to him and not telling him that Jonathan was in cahoots with David and had warned him and all that kind of stuff. And hey, you guys aren't being loyal. So Doeg steps up and said, hey, I saw David. I saw David down in Nob. And guess what I saw? I saw Ahimelech, the priest, and he went and inquired of the Lord for David, and he fed him, okay? And he gave him a sword. He armed him. So this sets Saul, he's mad, right? He's mad. And I want you to watch what he does. It is tragic what he does. And you might have read this in the Bible, but maybe you've never slowed down slow enough to kind of take in the whole story. It's a tragic story. He inquired of the Lord for him, in verse 10, and then we get to verse 11. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest. So what does Saul do? He calls immediately Ahimelech, who's the priest, okay? The son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob, and they came all of them to the king. And Saul said, "Hear now, thou son of Ahitub." And he answered, "Here I am, my lord." And Saul said unto him, "Why have you conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse," talking about David, "in that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him that he should rise against me to lie in wait, as at this day?" Why in the world did you do that? Why'd you give him food? Why'd you give him a sword? Why'd you conspire with him? Because he's coming for me. You see the disconnect from the truth. He's coming for me. Why are you with him? Why are you disloyal? Watch this, and this is what you want in a spiritual leader. Watch what Ahimelech says. Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, "And who is so faithful among all thy servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable in thine house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father. For thy servant knew nothing of all of this, less or more." Watch what he says. He points out, he says, first of all, he's your loyal servant. He hadn't done a doggone thing wrong. He's your son-in-law, okay? And he came to me, and I knew nothing about the rift between you guys. I didn't know that he was on the run from you. He came to me. He asked me to go to God for him, and I did do that, okay? I didn't know anything less or more, is what he said. Watch what Saul does. And the king said, "Thou shalt surely die. Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house." The king said unto the footmen that stood about him, watch this. So he turns to his soldiers, "Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew when he fled and did not show it to me." But watch what happens. "But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord." Okay? Now, they are told to kill the priests of the Lord, Ahimelech, and all his father's house. His father was Ahitub, and there's a whole line of priests. Nob was a whole city of priests. Kill him, all his father's house. And his men refuse, okay? His men refuse, okay? And I think they are to be applauded for refusing, all right? There is a duty to a higher power, okay? And I'll say this to you sometimes, and we talked about this before here at church, okay? We are to obey the rulers over us. We are to obey the authorities over us until they try to get us to do something that is against God's will, okay? Now, some people struggle with this. Well, you got to do what everybody's, what the leader says. Well, you do what the leader says until the leader contradicts God, okay? You are to obey God. Remember, there's an authority structure. Picture an umbrella. You are under what God put over you, but guess who's at the top rung of the ladder? It's God, okay? It's God. Don't ever let anybody influence authority over you and get you to do wrong, okay? Because, well, I'm your authority. Well, your greatest authority and your greatest loyalty is to be to God, okay? Now, that may not mean much to us now, but let's say there may very easily come a time in our life where we face persecution, from a government. Don't tell me that that's out of realm of possibility, okay? That tells us that we can't openly, preach the gospel, or we can't talk about Jesus, or we can't do it. Hey, there's parts of this world right now where if you share Jesus, you're gonna go to jail, you're gonna get beaten, you might get beheaded, okay? Don't tell me that that cannot happen in the good old US of A. I hope not. But let me tell you something. I've seen signs in recent years that I've seen authority and absolute power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, okay? And I made up my mind a long time ago that guess what? My loyalty has to lie with God. My loyalty has to lie with God, okay? I heard a preacher one time, and some of y'all get mad at me, but I'm gonna say what he said anyway. He said this: you are to obey the law of the land until the law of the land contradicts the law of God. And he said this: he said, when the law of the land contradicts the law of God, he said, to hell with the law of the land. And that ain't cussing, that's just good preaching, okay? You stand with God. You stand with God. Come hell or high water, okay? You stand with God. These guys are told to kill priests by the king. We can't do that. We cannot do that. Why? They're the priest of God. You don't do that, okay? Saul is deranged. He's gone off his rocker, and he's telling them to commit, mass murder of these priests. Now watch this. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. And the king said to Doeg, watch this, turn thou and fall upon the priest. Hey, Doeg, you're the only one that spoke up. Doeg, I got a job for you. Kill these priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned, watch this, and he fell upon the priest and slew on that day 85 persons that did wear a linen ephod. He turned and he killed 85 priests. But that's not all. Look at the next verse. And Nob, the city of the priest, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women, children and sucklings and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. I want you to see this. Saul wipes out an entire city of priests. Why? Because they were disloyal to him, he said, okay, and he kills them all. Saul, how the mighty have fallen, it says about him. At one time, walking with God, knowing God, having God's hand on him, okay? And because he was reprimanded by God, because he was told you're wrong and he still dug in, and then God's like, okay, you know what? I'm done with it. You're not even gonna be king anymore. He got so bitter that he allowed himself to go down this road. Listen to me. Do not underestimate where bitterness against God, when God reprimands you and scolds you, will lead you in your life. I have seen people so angry, so bitter with God, that they do unspeakable things to themselves, to others, to their lives. Why? Because they allowed something to get in there and just cause a cancer of bitterness. That's what you see in the life of Saul. And it's tragic. It's tragic. Listen to me. As much as we are telling you, be a David, do not be a Saul. Learn the lessons of Saul, okay? He is led to a horrible point. But watch this. And Abiathar, notice and remember that name. And Abiathar showed David's, I've skipped to verse 20. And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar. So Ahimelech got killed, his whole household, but one of his sons, Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priest. So he comes with this news. And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day when Doeg the Edomite was there. David said, I knew when I was in Nob, I saw Doeg, and I know he works for Saul, and I knew it. I knew it, okay? That he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. David said, man, I've caused this. I've caused this. What a weight. A whole city wiped out. And David said, I knew it that day I've occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. Watch what he says, abide thou with me, fear not, for he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life. But with me thou shalt be in safeguard. So he says, hey, Abiathar, I want you to come. Now I want you to remember Abiathar, he plays a big role when David becomes king, okay? And I want you to remember that. So as we go through and tell the narrative. Then they told David, saying, behold, the Philistines fight against Keilah, and they rob the threshing floors. So they come with word that the Philistines have attacked a place called Keilah. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go and smite these Philistines? And the Lord said unto David, go and smite the Philistines and save Keilah. And David's men said unto him, behold, we be afraid here in Judah. How much more then if we come to Keilah against the armies of the Philistines? So David goes to God and said, should I take my men? Remember, he's got about 400 guys, but band of misfits, right? Should I go rescue the city of Keilah, who's been attacked by Philistines? God says, yes, do it. But David's men are like, well, we're scared. We're scared where we're at. If we get over there where the Philistines are, we're really going to be scared. We don't really want to do that. We're afraid. Then David inquired of the Lord again, and the Lord answered him and said, arise, go down to Keilah, for I will deliver the Philistines into thine hand. So David and his men went to Keilah and fought with the Philistines and brought away their cattle and smote them with a great slaughter, just like God had said. He goes down there and rescues Keilah. So David saved the inhabitants of Keilah. And it came to pass when Abiathar, remember him, the son of Ahimelech, fled to David to Keilah, that he came down with an ephod in his hand. And it was told Saul that David was come to Keilah. Now watch this. So David goes and rescues this city called Keilah. Abiathar comes to him. Saul hears that David is in Keilah fighting against the Philistines. It was told Saul that David was come to Keilah. And watch what Saul jumps to the conclusion of. And it's so crazy. And Saul said, God, back up, God hath delivered him into my hand. For he is shut in by entering into a town that hath gates and bars. Here, Saul is still thinking that God is going to bless him with killing David. It's so crazy seeing the twisted mentality of the truth that David is being pursued and the twisting of the truth of Saul. So Saul says, hey, it's God's gift to me. David's trapped in the city of Keilah. And Saul called all the people together to war, to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. And David knew that Saul secretly practiced mischief against him. And he said to Abiathar the priest, bring hither the ephod. So he's got the priest, Abiathar, his dad was Ahimelech and got killed, and all his family. Here's Abiathar, and he's like, hey, I want to inquire of God, bring hither the ephod. Then said David, verse 10, O Lord God of Israel, thy servant hath certainly heard that Saul seeketh to come to Keilah, to destroy the city for my sake. And here's what he asked God. He said, will the men of Keilah, who he just delivered, will the men of Keilah deliver me up into his hand? Will Saul come down as thy servant hath heard, O Lord God of Israel? I beseech thee, tell thy servant. And the Lord said, he will come down. So he goes to God. He said, is Saul going to come down here? Two things. Is he going to come down? And will the men of Keilah turn me over to him? God says he will come down. Verse number 12, then said David, will the men of Keilah deliver me and my men into the hand of Saul? And the Lord said, they will deliver thee up. So then here's what David does. Then David and his men, which were about 600, so now he had 400, now he's in Keilah, he's got 600, okay, arose and departed out of Keilah and went whithersoever they could go. And it was told Saul that David was escaped from Keilah, and he forbare to go forth. And David abode in the wilderness, okay, notice that, in strongholds, and remained in a mountain in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but what? But God delivered him not into his hand. So you see the true narrative, God keeps delivering David out of Saul's hand. But Saul sees it every time that David is right there in front of him. Oh, God's delivered him into my hand. I'm going to kill him. And David saw that Saul was come out to seek his life, and David was in the wilderness of Ziph in a wood. And Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went to David into the wood and strengthened his hand in God. That sticks out to me. So Jonathan, who hadn't seen in a while, had warned him to leave just a while back. They made a covenant with the arrows and he warned him to go and all that kind of stuff. Jonathan comes to see David. Have you ever wondered this? How can Jonathan find David so easily, but Saul can't? It's very simple. God's protection on him. God was protecting David, okay? David lived a life that honored God. David lived a life of putting God first, even if it led him to be in a cave, even if it led him into the wilderness, even if he was living off bread that he had to scrounge around from the priest, even if he was carrying a sword that was a little oversized. Hey, he trusted in God and God protected him. Let me tell you this, God will protect you if you in all your ways acknowledge him. He will protect you, he will guide you, and guess what? He will steer you around the pitfalls of life that are waiting for you to fall in them. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Psalms and Proverbs talks about the wicked who have no regard for God, who don't acknowledge him. What happens? They stumble through life. They find every pitfall. They find every enemy. But guess what? You have enemies out there, but when you have God guiding you, what does God do? He knows just when to get you to turn. He knows just when to make what you need to happen. Trust God, watch for him, acknowledge him, meditate in his word, live in his presence. And what will he do? He will guide your path. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. What does it mean? Yes, he's going to tell you where to go, but he's going to tell you where to go that's going to avoid the pitfalls. You ever get on your phone and you're going on a trip somewhere and you punch in the address, and then that phone tells you in a voice, turn right, turn left. You got the GPS dialed in, but then you get the big city, and what does it tell you to do? If you want to save time and avoid traffic because there's an accident up ahead, turn right, right? What's it doing for you? It's watching, and that GPS sees what's ahead of you, what's coming. It's monitoring all that traffic, and it guides you around it. You have something far better than Apple Maps or Google Maps in your life. You have the Lord. And what God does for you is he will guide you. He will direct your path. He will keep you from stumbling. He will navigate you through the darkness. He will navigate you through the wilderness. David's life is an example of that. David trusted in the Lord. You know what David's crime was? David was picked by God. That's all he ever did. What did he do to threaten Saul? He didn't do it. Watch some sheep, get anointed king. What did he do? Spoke up on behalf of God when all the coward soldiers were scared of Goliath. And he said, somebody ought to shut that guy up. Well, we ain't going to do it. Well, I'll do it. All he ever did was right. All he ever did was put God first. All he ever did was defend God's name. And so you know what? God looked down and said, you know what? I kind of like that. David was a man after God's own heart. What set him aside and apart from everybody else? He put God first every day of his life, no matter where it led him. If it put him in danger with Goliath, he stood. If he needed to stand, he stood. If God told him to run, he'd run. Was he perfect? No. Does he tell lies? Yeah, he lied to the priest. Well, I'm here on a secret mission. Was he? No. Is that okay to tell a lie? No. He makes major blunders in his life, but overall in his life, he kept God front and center. Let that be your cry every day. Keep God front and center. Yes, you're going to mess up. When you do, you deal with it with God. You confess that to him. You let him take things from you that shouldn't be there, but you keep your eyes on him and let him guide you. God delivered him, but God delivered him not into his hand. And David saw that Saul was come out to seek his life, and David was in the wilderness of Ziph, and I already read this. Jonathan shows up and strengthened his hand in God. And he said unto him, this is what Jonathan said, fear not. I love Jonathan. For the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee. And thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee. And that also Saul my father knoweth. My dad knows that you're going to be king, and my dad knows that my heart's with you, and I'm going to be standing right by your side. And they two made a covenant before the Lord, and David abode in the wood, and Jonathan went to his house. Then came up the Ziphites to Saul to Gibeah. So they go find Saul, saying, doth not David hide himself with us in strongholds in the wood, in the hill of Hachilah, where is on the south of Jeshimon? Now therefore, O king, come down according to all the desire of thy soul to come down, and our part shall be to deliver him into the king's hand. So these Ziphites come, and they're like, Saul, he's down in our neck of the woods, and we know that territory, and guess what? Our part will be to deliver him into your hands, so bring your guys down. And Saul said to them in response, blessed be ye of the Lord, for ye have compassion on me. Go, I pray you, prepare yet, and know and see his place where his haunt is, and who hath seen him there, for it is told me that he dealeth very subtly. I'm hearing that David's very crafty and very hiding. I want you to go down and figure out where he's at, and I'll come down. That's basically what he's saying. See therefore, and take knowledge of the lurking places where he hideth himself, and come ye again to me with the certainty. So find out exactly where he's at, and I will go with you, and it shall come to pass, if he be in the land, that I will search him out throughout all the thousands of Judah. I'll find him. So the Ziphites, and they arose and went to Ziph before Saul. But David and his men were in the plain of Maon, in the plain on the south of Jeshimon. Saul also and his men went to seek him. And they told David, wherefore he came down into the rock and abode in the wilderness of Maon. So David knows that Saul's coming, and when Saul heard that, he pursued after David in the wilderness of Maon. So there's a chase all through these wilderness areas. And Saul went on this side of the mountain, and David and his men on that side of the mountain. And David made haste to get away for fear of Saul. For Saul and his men compassed David and his men round about to take them. Watch this. But there came a messenger unto Saul, saying, haste thee and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land. Wherefore Saul returned from pursuing after David and went against the Philistines. Therefore they call that place Selah Hema-Likoth. And David went up from thence and dwelt in the strongholds of En-Gedi. Okay, so basically Saul gets these guys to tell him where he's at. They say he's over here. He runs to this wilderness over here. Saul chases him, but then Saul gets word from back home that guess what? The Philistines have invaded the land. So guess what? You got to put David on hold, and you got to go back home and fight the Philistines. It was constant war with the Philistines invading the land. They were in constant battle. So Saul leaves. David goes to a place called En-Gedi. Now watch this. We're going to cover chapter 24 as well. I want you to listen to this. This is quite an action-packed chapter. So David's in En-Gedi, and Saul's back home fighting the Philistines. And it came to pass when Saul was returned from following the Philistines. So he goes and takes care of business with the Philistines, and immediately comes back to that region where David was hidden to continue to pursue David. That was told him, saying, behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And I promise you, go home and Google En-Gedi, and you can pull it up. And I mean, it is steep, rocky cliffs. And you can just imagine David hiding in these places, and Saul and his 3,000 men chasing him all over these cliffs. And he came to the sheepcotes by the way, where was a cave. And Saul went in to cover his feet. So Saul's chasing David. Saul goes in to lie down and to rest up from this pursuit and cover his feet, the Bible says. Watch this. And David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. So Saul decides to take rest and stay in En-Gedi, in a cave, in the exact same cave that David and his men are in. David and his men are on the sides of it. Saul comes in, and he's going to rest in this cave. And the men of David said unto him, now watch this right here. This gets crazy right here. I love this. Because remember, Saul is saying, oh, look, there's David, got him trapped. God's given him to me, right? Now, I want you to watch what David's men says, and I want you to watch the principle that David uses to make decisions. Watch this. The men of David said unto him, behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Okay? So here they are hiding in the sides of the cave. Saul walks in to rest in that cave. And immediately David's guys, his 600 guys that are hiding, I don't know if they're all in there, probably not all of them, I don't know, okay? But they start telling David, oh my goodness, there's Saul. There's Saul. Night, there's Saul. Here you are. Who's chasing you? Saul. What did God tell you? God told you, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand. Guess what? This is it. Here it is. There he is. It's God's gift to you. Okay? Then David arose. Back up one. And cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privately. Okay? So he slips down there while Saul is sleeping, takes a knife or something, and cuts his robe. Okay? And his men are saying, look at him, there he is. But David doesn't go and kill him. He goes down there and cuts his robe off. Now watch this. This tells you about David. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him because he had cut off Saul's skirt. Not a skirt like you think a skirt, but part of his clothing. David felt so bad for being disrespectful to Saul, who's his king, who hates him, who's trying to kill him. And he felt bad about cutting off just a piece of his garment there. And his heart smote him. And he said unto his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. I want you to see this right here. Who's the anointed of the Lord? Both of them. Saul, anointed by the Lord. David, anointed by the Lord. But who's got the kingdom right now? Who God said he's going to take it away from Saul, but he hadn't yet, had he? So he's going to, but he hadn't yet. So David says, I cannot lift my hand against the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. I want you to see the pressure, David. His men are saying, end it. We're living in a cave. We're camping out every night. We can't go home. Your family's hid over in Moab. End this. There he is. And he's like, no. Why? Because it's not time. It's not time. David was principled in those kind of things. It wasn't time. It wasn't time. So David stayed his servants with these words and suffered them not to rise against Saul. He said, don't you hurt him, and I'm not going to hurt him. But Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. Saul knows nothing. David also arose afterward and went out of the cave and cried after Saul. So Saul gets up, leaves the cave. David goes out, and I don't know how far apart they are, but he cries out after Saul, saying, my Lord the king. When Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed himself. David said to Saul, wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, behold, David seeketh thy hurt? Why are you listening to everybody else, Saul? Why are you listening to people telling you, I hate you? Why are you listening to everybody saying, I want to kill you? He bows himself to the earth. He said, behold, this day thine eyes have seen how that the Lord had delivered thee today into mine hand in the cave. I could have killed you right there. And some bade me kill thee, but mine eye spared thee, and I said, I will not put forth mine hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, see, yea, see the skirt of thy robe in my hand. And he holds up the piece of clothing. I cut off the skirt of thy robe and killed thee not. Know thou and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in mine hand, and I have not sinned against thee. Yet thou huntest me, my soul to take it. Yet thou huntest my soul to take it. It was important for David to know, I could have killed you. It was important, I should say, for David to say and make the point to Saul, look, you were laying right there. I could have killed you. I cut off your skirt, okay? It about killed me even to do that. But I want you to know something. Why didn't I kill you? When God, and I find it even ironic that David said God delivered him into my hand. Would God have been upset for David to kill him? I don't know. It didn't happen, so I don't know. But David made the choice to err on the side of, hey, I want to show you that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against thee, yet thou huntest my soul to take it. I want to prove a point to you. I could kill you, but I didn't kill you. Why? Because I don't hate you, and I've never hated you, and I've never tried to harm you. I've not sinned against you. He proved a point to him. That's what he's trying to do, okay? Now watch this though. And this is what you do when people hate you without a cause. This is what you do. You know what you do? You give them to God. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. Let me tell you something. My mom always told me, heap coals of fire on their head. You ever heard that? I don't know what that means, but it sounds fun to like do to enemies, like fire, put it on their head. Yeah, no, it burns them up. When you respond with kindness, when you respond with grace, God will take care of your enemies, okay? You know what? Jesus, in the New Testament, you see Jesus was attacked, called liar, called illegitimate child. He was attacked. You read John 8, they hurled insults at him like crazy. He never, ever, 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 ever defended himself. He wasn't like fighting for himself. When they came to arrest him, he just said, put up your sword. He healed the guy, Malchus, that cut his ear off. He defended his father. He overturned tables when they turned his father's house into a den of thieves. It was supposed to be a house of prayer. He defended those, right? He defended the poor and the fatherless and the prostitutes and all that kind of stuff, and he would go to war for them. But you know what? He was gracious. It burns them up, your enemies, okay, when they don't have that power over you. What does David do here? Here's what he says. He says, verse number 12, the Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. You got bigger problems. Let me tell you something. Listen, your problem, Saul, is not me. It's you and God. And so you know what? I am an open book. God, look at my heart. Look at Saul's heart. You make the decision. You take care of this, God. I give it over to you. There's people in this room that you deal with things and you've tried your dead level best and you've given your all and you've given your heart and it's just misunderstood and people continue to attack and come at you and you fight battles like family turmoil and stuff like that. And you've tried to remedy it and heal it and tried to bend over backwards to bring peace maybe to your extended family or your brothers or your sister after the death of a parent or whatever it is. Hey, you do everything that you can, but you leave it with God. God knows your heart. You make sure your heart is pure. You make sure you do everything that you can. But then there comes a time that you just got to say, the Lord judge between me and you. The Lord judge between me and you. As saith the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. After whom is the king of Israel come out? He said, Saul, who are you chasing? After whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog? After a flea? You know what I am? I'm a flea. That's what David said. You're like chasing a dead dog or a flea. I'm a nobody is what he's saying. I haven't lifted up my hand against you. The Lord therefore be judge and judge between me and thee and see and plead my cause and deliver me out of thine hand. Hey, listen, it is much better for your heart to be pure and God to step in and fight for you. The Lord plead your cause. The Lord deliver me out of thine hand. I don't know how many times I've prayed that in my ministry. God, I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why they're saying that. I don't know why. I don't know why these attacks come. I don't know why these fights come. I don't know why these battles come. You know what, God? Hey, you deal with it. You deal with them. You deal with them. I turn them over to you. I turn them over to you. Plead my cause. You know what I pray a lot of times? God, fight for me. God, fight for me. God, fight for me. It came to pass when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, what's this change? Is this thy voice, my son David? Saul lifted up his voice and wept. Saul knew. He had moments of clarity. Is that you, David? My boy? You just want to slap Saul. But here he's crying. Why? I mean, he got a profound act of kindness. He should be dead right now. Okay? It touched him, and he said to David, thou art more righteous than I. For thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. Now I showed this day, watch this, how that thou hast dealt well with me. For as much as when the Lord had delivered me into thine hand, thou killest me not. God gave you into my hand, you didn't kill me. You've showed me righteousness. You've done good today, and I've rewarded you with evil. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Nobody does this, David. Watch this, though. Watch what this moment of clarity, watch what Saul says. Wherefore the Lord reward thee good for that thou hast done unto me this day. And now, behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand. Swear now, therefore, unto me by the Lord, that thou wilt not cut off my seed after me, and that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul. So Saul says, you know what? You've showed me a profound kindness. You know what? You're going to be king. And Israel's going to prosper and flourish under you. I ask one thing. Don't kill all my family. Don't just kill all of us. David swore to him. But I love this. I want to leave you with this. And David swore unto Saul, and Saul, watch this, went home. But David and his men gat them up unto the hold. Saul went home, said his piece. David, you're better than I am. But guess what? David went right back to the hold where he was. Why? Because he knew that he could not trust Saul. There are times when you have to make peace with people and you have to say, they get to say their piece and you get to say, God bless you. But they have showed you that they cannot be trusted. And guess what? Just because you forgive someone, they forgive you, we good? Guess what? You do not always have to extend trust to people who have not proven trustworthy in the past. You got to learn that. You got to learn that. Guess what? Christianity is not, I got to be friends with everybody. I got to do all this kind of stuff. And I just got to be, buddy with, oh, why? Well, yeah. Well, they said they were sorry. Some people you don't trust. And they say one thing, and guess what? You go right back to where you were. Why? Because they've showed you who they are. There's going to be times like that. David was so wise, wasn't he? So wise. And guess what? He was right to be wise because, as we pick up next week, Saul ain't done, okay? Saul ain't done. Saul ain't done. Saul ain't done, but we are. It's 8:01. We got to be. I want to know who painted this, so please let me know who painted this. It's beautiful. Thank you for it. Father, go with us. Help us to be Davids. Help us to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. Help us to do right. Help us to put you first. Help us to be ethical. Help us to be moral. Help us to be what we're supposed to be. in our dealings with people. Thank you for the wisdom that we learned from David. We love you and we need you. Bless us. Help us to be shining lights for your truth. In Jesus'